In this video, we're going to go over all the ways that people are wasting their mesos and making the game way harder for themselves. Do not do these things if possible. There's so many different things in the game that require mesos, and it is so important, especially early on when you don't have a high income, to be very careful and precise with your meso usage so that you don't waste your time, because wasting mesos is just wasting your time. The first thing that I want to talk about, and it's something I'm sure we've heard so many times, is Starforcing Off Event. Basically, every once in a while, there is an event on Sundays that makes Starforcing a little bit easier, whether it's a 30% off discount or a 5, 10, 15 event, which means there's a 100% success chance from starring from 5 to 6, 10 to 11, and 15 to 16 especially. Or even there's a Shining Starforce event that lets you have both of these perks at once. It is so important to ideally Starforce on event only because it saves you so much money. The higher stars you have, the more expensive things get. Somebody who just Starforces off event 0 to 10 stars on mules, not that big of a deal because 0 to 10 stars is super cheap. But once you start going for 17 or 22, it gets really expensive, and Starforcing on an event is crucial. Especially in the early game when you don't have a very high income, it's very important to play around these events. If you want to know how you can find out when there's an event, they're always posted on the patch notes. You just click on the Sunny Sunday hyperlink and you can see when the Starforcing events are. And you should play around these Starforce events so that you don't waste your money. The next thing I want to talk about is cubing before you 22 star your gear. Now, what do I mean by this? Certain gear in the game, you would 22 it via the transfer method. So for example, with the Superior Golix belt, you can transfer stars to it and not have to star it directly, because starring the Superior Golix belt is too risky. Since you don't have that many of them, there's a pretty decent chance it'll boom and it'll take a really long time to get a spare. So what people do is they Starforce a belt that's 10 levels below the Superior belt, so a 140 belt like the Pink Bean belt or the Reinforced belt, which you get a lot more of, and they transfer the stars to the Superior Golix belt. Even though you lose 1 star, it's still worth and way less risky. But the thing about transferring is you lose the potential on the item that you transferred onto. So as you can see, this belt started as unique, but once I transferred to it, it went back to rare. So I've constantly seen this where people will legendary their gear that they want to transfer to. They might even hit a super good pot on it, but then they lose the pot later when they transfer stars onto it. So essentially they wasted their money. So it's very important on these items that you are transferring stars to, like the Superior Golix set, to just use free cubes and settle on either epic or unique so you don't waste too much money on it. Because in the end, you're going to be transferring to it and you only want to get it to legendary when it's 22 stars ideally. Next up is flaming. I have constantly seen so many people waste so much money on flames. Now here's the thing about flames is it's actually not bad to flame just a little bit to get some sort of stat on your gear. But what I'm talking about is when people greed on flames and they push their boundaries more than they should have. Flames are very expensive. It's more expensive than starring. It's more expensive than potting, especially when you're min-maxing your flames. A lot of people, when you ask them, oh, what should I settle on this flame? What should I get on this gear? They'll give you a ballpark, but that ballpark is generally way higher than what your income can really afford. Flaming is a rabbit hole that can get really deep really quickly. And you can spend hundreds of bill just for plus 10 flame when you could have just not done that at all and saved your money for the rest of your gear if it's not done yet. Min-maxing flames is a very end game activity and it's not something you should really think about. Plus, on top of all of this, you get so many flames through events nowadays. Events nowadays give you hundreds of black flames, hundreds of eternal flames, hundreds of regular red flames. So honestly, I would only utilize these free flames until you get to pretty much the end game where you're kind of forced to spend on flames because there's nothing else to spend on. Next is cubing gear that gets replaced. So what do I mean by this? What I'm talking about is stuff like cubing your Apsos to legendary or cubing your CRA weapon to legendary and just constantly trying to cube it for 2-line or 3-line. These are items that get replaced faster than you think. just getting the Apso set to like 16 or 17 stars, leaving it at epic, maybe you get your glove to legendary for the crit damage, is more than enough gear than you need to start doing things like H Lucid and H Will, and to potentially start getting arcane drops. And once you start getting arcanes, you could just replace the Apsos with them, especially the Fafnir weapon. I have constantly seen people spend on the Fafnir weapon, trying to get it to legendary, trying to get as much damage as possible when Absolab is right around the corner, and you're going to have that for a way longer time. Or when you're hyper burned, you get a free arcane weapon or a free Apso weapon, so you don't even have to even use the Fafnir weapon. On top of all that, if you're even terror burned or again hyperburned, you can get a free Fafnir weapon that you can just use for the time being. Please don't waste your Mesos on gear that gets replaced pretty quickly. Even if the gear gets replaced in like 1 month, that's still in the long term soon enough that you wouldn't want to spend your money and invest too much on temporary gear. Now this next one I'm very guilty of myself, to be honest with you, so I know about it almost more than anybody else, and it's over investing on mules. So I've seen this constantly where people try to get their mules to all 17 stars, all legendary gear, and it only does up to like Enlomian, which is way more damage than you need to do up to Enlomian, for example. I get it. Some people just want to one-shot the boss and move on because they're on a mule. They don't necessarily want to struggle. I completely get it, but sometimes it goes a bit overboard where you really try to like hard roll for like 2-line magic with boss, or 2-line boss with magic, or even like 3-line magic attack or attack on your WSC, which is just so overkill. Or you try to get double crit damage on your gloves on a mule. All these things are so overkill for a mule, and they're not necessary, and you could easily go past the point of return on investment where you spend like 20-30 bill on your mule and it's going to take you like half a year to get all of your money back. Whereas instead you could have just maxed the nodes on it if you farmed a lot. If you have that kind of money anyways, you probably have a lot of nodes, and you could have just saved money along the way. Now this last one is a little bit weird, but I do want to mention it, and it's double priming your gear before you're really ready to. So what do I mean by this? I've personally seen on stream and in the community that double priming has become a much more like regular thing at this point in MapleStory, and that's because there's a lot of people with a lot of income out there and they need to get gains somehow, so they start double priming their gear. The thing is, you have to keep in mind that these people, they already have the baseline of their gear setup. All their gear is 3-line, their flames are good, they're all 22 star and everything, and then they start double priming their gear. I've personally seen people try to double prime their gear before they have even full 22 stars, which I just find so crazy. There's a sequence to this. There's a sequence of Meso spending efficiency that you should follow to optimize your gains. This is a much more like endgame relevant thing, but I've seen this where because their friends are double priming, because people they look up to are double priming, they want to also do that. But at the end of the day, double priming is so incredibly expensive. Dozens and dozens, even hundreds of billions on gear just to get almost no gains. So make sure you have all the baseline gear set up first, and make sure your income is really high as well, and then maybe you could try double priming. But with that all being said, I hope this video helped you out, maybe helped you rethink your Meso spending habits, or maybe you know somebody that does these things and you want to send this video to them to call them out. Go for it. If this video was interesting, I have a lot of other videos on my channel designed to help you guys out and progress or entertain you or whatever. And if you want to watch me play MapleStory almost every single day, pull up to my stream. And with that all being said, have a wonderful day. Thank you so much to my beautiful members: Blazefire, Shooms, Uju, Shagad, Ravi Espa, Grim4K, Koga, Pabo, Picolneer, Jesse, Dante Victory, Zats, and CK. I appreciate you guys so much.